Hello team, welcome back to another Line Warcast. This is your map today. It's pretty small for what is going to be a 3v3 Notorious Nubs in blue, Romad Quantum Scientist in red, Tatty in orange, against someone said that my nickname sucks in teal, Barracuda in pink, and Sir Squash in green. So because the map is relatively small, both teams are going to spawn very close to each other. This is Romad spawning right beside Sir Squash. So this is Alpha Team, Bravo Team. Sir Squash is going to have a little bit of help because Barracuda is actually spawned right beside them. So Romad's in a little bit of a 2v1 situation. Got a double nuke opener, actually triple rocket opener, pardon me. And my understanding is that there's a little bit of a miscommunication on Alpha Team this game. In that someone called a double rocket opener, and what happens is that Nubs goes for 2 rockets, and Tatty goes for another one as well. So Tatty going for a factory. This energy, like power plant, is for Nubs to be launching the rockets. And it's going to be a race against time for whether Romad can hold out long enough for Nubs and Tatty to launch these rockets to defend red here. Someone said that my nickname sucks is to the far left, going for 3 airports, all going helicopters with the first gas on the way. And this is a very interesting game immediately. 2 more factories for Tatty. This is going to be a very strong army, a 3rd factory as well. Potentially all artillery, maybe some SAMs. For Alpha Team's sake, it will hopefully be some SAMs because these helicopters for nickname are going to become a big problem over time with the 3 airport start. And it's actually a mixture of commandos and infantry out of the barracks for Romad with some artillery pieces coming out of the factory. Barracuda's got 2 industry on the way, just completed, after a 4 factory, 3 barracks start. So pink is going to get a lot of units, and it is going to be very difficult for Romad to hold on to this position as we see the infantry start to dig in a little bit. And Romad's kind of building the rest of the production behind this front line, fully expecting that this is going to be pushed and eventually destroyed. And these 3 rockets now are nearly 2/3 of the way done. They were pre-constructed with the money that the players get at the beginning of the game, so the first few buildings show up immediately. They don't have to build. So these are going to be very quick rockets. There's definitely enough range to hit this mountain range, I guess, for lack of a better word. I mean, these rockets could even hit this production probably for both Sir Squash and Barracuda. Romad is super dug in at this point. It's not an unbreakable position, especially because pink is going to have so much artillery. Sir Squash also has 4 factories, so it's going to be a lot of artillery that eventually would be able to break this. It just depends on whether the rockets are going to fly before that happens. The first artillery is starting to shell the infantry, who get that defensive bonus. They're probably a little bit fatigued because units, as they dig in, they take fatigue damage and only recover it over time. And Romad's actually going to jump out of this defensive line, try to jump on this artillery since there's no industry or infantry escort for it. There's no meat shield in front of these pink artillery. It's not really going to matter because there's just 6 of them already deployed opening fire. And the rockets are they are done. The first one for Nubs is on the way. The second one from Nubs might be going anytime now. And then of course Tatty can also launch a rocket if they would like. This is going right towards the production for Sir Squash. It's going to get 3 buildings. But nicknames helicopters are starting to move out, and there's 6 of them already. There's probably going to be more on the way. Yeah, 3 helicopters at a time. Nubs looks to be just trying to destroy Sir Squash's all the buildings, and this will knock Sir Squash out of the game, and that's exactly what happens. So in this case, in this situation, this triple rocket opener is actually doing quite well, and the nice thing is that Tatty has another one. that will likely allow Romad to even start pushing. It'll be interesting to see whether Alpha Team tries to destroy the army with this rocket or the production. I think either one is a good call, and it is going to be on the production here. And that destroys a lot of buildings. So slowly over time, this push from Pink is going to thin out, and Romad is going to be okay. It's really up to Nickname now to push very hard on the left-hand side of the map. Still going for 3 helicopters at a time. And building a barracks up close. But it's very difficult to win a 3v2 situation. If we've learned anything about line war team games, when you lose a teammate, it's generally pretty debilitating. Just eco-wise, it's hard to come back. But luckily for Barracuda, there's still 2 industry, 2 barracks and a factory with a 3rd barracks on the way. Taddy's starting to build some SAMs out of these factories. That is a very good play. The helicopters down here with the infantry are going to be able to push pretty hard. It's a good dig-in by Taddy. Because as long as Taddy and Nubs don't get overwhelmed by Nickname, which likely won't happen because it's a 2v1 situation, there's no real way, I think, for Bravo Team to win this, but let's see how this goes. Nubs has destroyed the 2nd launch pad, so there's only 2 left. Another rocket on the way for Nubs. Taddy isn't building one yet. It might be a money issue, since they cost 500 to build, so they're very expensive units building rockets. And the upkeep cost is also quite high. Interceptors on the way for Romad. When these interceptors get out, it'll be difficult for Nickname to get anything done with these helicopters. Since interceptors just shred and there's no anti-air yet for Bravo Team. And economy-wise, it has to be in Alpha Team's favor just by virtue of having that 3rd player. Nickname has stopped building helicopters out of this airport. That's another factory that we hear Nubs dropping. And here comes another rocket. Which is just going to be sent right at Barracuda again. It's an interesting build just going for all these rockets. Because without building SAMs immediately, it's hard to counter this when the spawns are so close. This defensive line for Taddy is not going to be destroyed anytime soon. There's even a SAM here with more showing up. With 4 SAMs, Nickname's helicopters are going to be totally neutralized. Even with 1 SAM and an interceptor, this is going to be a tough fight for the helicopters to take. One goes down, there's 2 left. Infantry in the back for Barracuda. Which I think best case scenario snipes some of this industry and these refineries. And now you can just see how effective helicopters are when they hover over SAMs in these sorts of numbers. But the interceptor count for Romad is going to continue to grow, and it's not like there's any risk of this airport going down. I mean, I suppose if Barracuda snipes this, but I think there's just enough at home, especially with this helicopter that Romad can lift off to deal with the infantry. Interceptor is probably going to get one more helicopter, pardon me, over time. And no more rockets on the way for Alpha Team, and I think it's very smart now that Teddy's just dug in here, because this really is in favor of the team with more players. So I think that Alpha Team can be a little bit defensive instead of needing to push. And as for how Alpha Team gets back in this game, Nickname's gonna have to somehow 1v2 on the left-hand side, and then great call from Barracuda to probably start heading across with the transport boat. Maybe get up a trade route if at all possible. Desperate times, desperate measures. But this SAM count is growing, and that's really the advantage that Nickname has. And if the helicopters can't get on top of the artillery, since the SAMs are covering them, this is just going to be a slow march for Bravo Team, or pardon me, for Alpha Team towards Nickname's base, who Nickname is transitioning into bombers. Which will do decent against SAMs, but it's this interceptor count that's building for Romad that is a huge problem. Nubs has another rocket on the way, which can be used against Nickname at this point, and likely will be. And although Barracuda's in the forest, it's not a huge deal. Romad's only on one power plant, pardon me. Taddy has the pipeline hooked up and is going for a town in the back. So potentially some gas sharing going on between the two players. But this is a very large army for Taddy off of these 4 factories, which continue to go for mass artillery, which, as mentioned, is going to just be very difficult for Nickname to deal with, since the helicopters can't get on top of it, and Nickname doesn't have any factories to build tanks, which might be able to deal with this. The bombers will be alright, but they have to get to a decent number of them in order for them to be very effective. And these 4 interceptors are definitely in range to defend. Taddy's artillery is starting to move a little bit up to the north, which will make it very difficult for Nickname to win here. Maybe with the help of Barracuda, who's slowly starting to claw their way back by building more production. Second factory on the way. And I think the SAM play is very smart from Pink. So at least the interceptors can't go to the north. Rocket for Nubs is almost 2/3 of the way done. And more industry for orange and red. Which over time is very bad news for the 2 remaining players on Bravo Team. Firecrackers taking on some of the infantry. When this artillery gets into the mountains with all this infantry for Nickname, it'll be very difficult for the infantry to do much of anything. The first transport boat on the way, and a 3rd factory for Barracuda. This is potentially just a scout from Romad to try to go around and see what's up at Pink Space. And unfortunately for Nickname, they lost a handful of helicopters with these 4 SAMs in the mountain range. It's such a strong position for SAMs, since they have a stealth bonus. All units get a stealth bonus in the mountains. So the helicopters, by the time they see that they're getting hit, they're right on top of these SAMs and they're doing max damage. When the firecracker's going off in the SAM, that's actually when it does its most DPS. And here comes another rocket somewhere. It's going to the north again. It's kind of unfortunate for Barracuda. It's just constant rockets over and over again. 3 SAMs aren't going to be enough to shoot this down, unfortunately. And that poor commando. 2 factories and 2 barracks are left over. And Nickname's bombers are starting to go. You'll notice that the SAM isn't making the firecracker noise, it's because the machine gun can't actually reach the bombers. It's only the SAM that can. So the bombers are going to be able to clear this defensive line pretty quick. But now Taddy has another rocket on the way. Lucky for Barracuda, they're across now, so there's some industry and economy that they can cap up here in the north. But the econ development for Alpha Team in the bottom right is looking pretty strong. The whole defensive line has been destroyed. Nickname is starting to get a town. And a city is on the way, so Nickname's economy is also going to be growing. Nickname, in fact, probably has the biggest economy at the moment in the game, if I had to guess. And Barracuda's starting to cap some of this ocean territory, which will also help out with the income problem. But it still is a 2v3 at this point in the game. Good body block of infantry for red to protect the artillery pieces so that teal can't just jump on them. Here comes one helicopter that's going to be able to do a ton of damage. There's no SAMs in position. But this is a pretty big army for Alpha Team in the mountains here. And this many SAMs will be able to start chipping away at the bombers. Or at least send them back home. There's a chance that Nickname could push with this infantry army and maybe destroy the SAMs, but there's still some artillery for Orange. And the problem is there's 6 factories for Alpha Team that just continue to pump out units. Good counter push from Barracuda. Linking up with Nickname's 2 remaining infantry pieces. And economy for Barracuda in the north, which is definitely the play to go for. There's going to be an impending push from Nickname, or pardon me, from Nubs and Taddy on Barracuda's base. And it will be very difficult for Barracuda to stop this. Hopefully for their sake, these bombers are in range. They're not quite. It's probably around here that is the max range for the bombers, so we'll see if Nickname is actually going to send them there. There's so many SAMs near this infantry army that even if the bombers go down here, it might not work all that much. Maybe they'll loop around the bottom to start attacking Taddy's base. But we've got to keep an eye on this many orange artillery showing up at Barracuda's base because there's not really much artillery back at home. Nothing's dug in or prepared for this. And this is a lot of power from Orange. So the bombers are going around the bottom. The interceptors, luckily for Nickname, have been sent out before, but if the bombers kind of proc to these SAMs, and then the interceptors see them, this could be bad. Maybe just based on the number of SAMs alone, this will be tough for the bombers to do anything. Bombers now for Romad themselves. And luckily for Nickname, all these interceptors are just going home. They've already sent their full payload, so they can't attack the bombers, but there's still so many SAMs down here. 2 more rockets ready for Alpha Team. And this will be the game-ending move, I believe. It'll be very difficult for Barracuda to hold that. And the rocket is probably going to go to this part of the production for Nubs. This is Nubs' vision, so all these buildings have been spotted. Hence why they're being targeted. And the push in the bottom left is thinning out for Nickname. There's still a decent amount of bombers. but not really enough to overwhelm this, and there's a lot of anti-bomber, anti-air for Alpha Team between the interceptors and all these SAMs. And another rocket that's ready for Taddy, who continues to push on Barracuda here in the north. If we go top-down view, you can kind of see. So Bravo Team actually has a lot of the land, but a ton of the eco that's already been developed for Alpha Team. And the fact that there's 3 players for Alpha Team really kind of skews the economic advantage in their favor. Besides these buildings on this northern island, these are the last production structures for Barracuda. Nickname's got 2 airstrips. These are really in a perfect spot to get the range to try to defend this. But without any AA, it'll be tough for Nickname to compete with these interceptors. There is a rocket which would be useful to break this position. It's actually a relatively small choke if Nickname could get this rocket off. But there goes the dock for Barracuda. The factory is going to follow relatively quick. And now it's a question of where Taddy is going to use this rocket, because Roman's going to be able to push up, link up with Taddy's artillery. And then Pink will no longer be occupying any territory on this southern island. Nubs is already building a town in this mountain range. Here come the bombers though, and there are still a lot of them. And here's this slight transition into interceptors from Nickname. There is a chance. Nickname has a very big economy. And exactly, if Barracuda just goes to this island and kind of turtles and digs in and starts building an air force, there could be a comeback. It's really this mass of units that are going to pressure Nickname pretty quickly here. The bombers kind of split up, unfortunately, a little bit, so they're kind of going in one by one on these SAMs. And here comes the interceptors in response. And this is where we'll really see the bombers just drop out of the sky. Helicopters shooting at the bombers as well. And the 2 SAMs for Barracuda doing their best in the mountain range. So bombers got a buff to their movement speed in this latest release, which is kind of good for the interceptor, because interceptors used to overtake the bombers as they were flying after them to shoot them down. So although it is a buff for the bomber, it does allow more interceptors to destroy bombers, since they don't overshoot. 2 cruisers already for Romad with the sneaky dock in the bottom right. Which is super unfortunate for Barracuda, who had an oil set up there, and there's no oil on this northern little island. Nickname's 1/3 of the way down on the rocket, with 3 interceptors now on the strip. Nubs is digging in to this town location with these SAMs and the supporting artillery. There's very little chance that this is going to be destroyed. I stand corrected. Barracuda has this gas in the top left. But Pink is still a long way off from having any meaningful number of planes. And here comes another rocket. That is what is just like a perfect location. Since it's like it's potential that all 5 buildings explode here. So 4 certainly down. The 5th barracks is very damaged. And both Nubs and Tatty have another rocket on the way. Helicopters and a second airport for Barracuda, who's got a port. But Nickname is going to have a huge army to deal with this 1v2 situation. And losing most of the bombers is a relatively big deal. There's a transport plane on the airport. And with this barracks showing up, maybe even some commando drops along the bottom, kind of the same route that the bombers took earlier. And Red's got quite an air force going. If these 3 cruisers show up to Barracuda's docks before there's enough defense, they could do a lot of damage with 2 helicopters on the airport. Barracuda's at least going to be able to defend against Red's cruisers. And for Nickname, this rocket's going to have to do a lot. And not even just the first rocket, but any subsequent rockets after that. Tatty's got a city in the bottom right at this point. Here come the helicopters from Barracuda. They'll do decent against these cruisers. And Nickname's got 3 factories here, so 3 factories competing with 6. But with the help of a rocket, maybe this is going to be possible. This might just be a min-range shot rocket to clear this army. But what's the better play is it's actually going towards this launch pad. It would be absolutely tragic if that one SAM destroyed it. So Nubs no longer has a launch pad. Tatty has a rocket on the way. Which in the same way that Nickname just hit this, Tatty could even just fire the rocket at Nickname's launch pad. Nubs takes the saved upkeep from having the launch pad and just builds 3 factories. This will be too much for Nickname to deal with. It's such a large blob, and with these 3 reinforcement factories over time, it's very difficult for Teal to compete. Interceptors taking on cruisers, so neither units are really doing all that much damage to each other. But this bomber is going to clean up this super destroyed, or super damaged cruiser, pardon me. Maybe over time. For now, it just gets away. Another town for Nubs. Barracuda is no longer going to be able to move any of the boats or fly any of the planes after losing that gas. And the other alternative is that Tatty's just going to hold on to this rocket, and it would be a great defensive rocket in case somehow Nickname was able to start counter-pushing. And here comes the last stand with all the interceptors and the bombers. But the SAMs do great against interceptors, so there's not much that they can do there. And Roma's got a huge air force at this point. Sub-pen for Barracuda. Subs are one of the best comeback units in the game with their stealth. And Barracuda's going to solve the energy problem with getting power plants. But there is no real way that Nickname can hold this off. Tanks for Nubs. Nubs has some gas. Has some energy banked up with this power plant. And this is flat land, so the tanks would be able to just roll right by this mountain range and get on top of all these airports. If that's the play for Nubs. Romad's starting to work on this northern island for Barracuda. Missile ship doing work against these helicopters is gonna get taken out by these bombers. And here comes another rocket from Nickname. Or rather, I'd assume Nickname is gonna at least fire this. But even if it does, it's not really gonna matter. Let's see where it goes. It's probably maybe a mid-range rocket on this army. And that's exactly what it is. It might get shot down before, though. And it unfortunately does. For Nickname. Here come these tanks. And with such little gas, Barracuda's gonna find it difficult to defend this with these 3 cruisers. GG. The 3 rocket opener in your 3v3. What a play. Good game all. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day, night, evening, whatever it is. Check out the Line War Discord if you want to learn more about the game. Check out Twitch. I stream on Twitch, SodaQuackers, whatever. Twitch.tv/SodaQuackers. Same name as YouTube. We'll see you around. Peace. Oh, right. March 20th to 26th. Line War Tournament. See you there. Peace. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.